My name is Ebony Thompson. I'm an artist from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and I live in New York City now. I have been drawing for a while, since I was about 4 or 5 years old. I had a cousin of mine who was actually teaching me how to write my name. And when he left, I ended up drawing a car or something of that nature. And he recognized that I have a talent, and he worked with me to nurture that talent, and I began to draw at an early age. The reason why I do art is because it became a form of expressive tool that I was able to use to communicate how I feel about certain things that were going on in my life, as well as the environment around me, the geopolitical climate that we were in, my economic issues that I was confronting, and some demons that I had inside that I had to confront as well. So I didn't have the verbal or the vocabulary to express some of those pains and some of those hurt and some of those happy moments. So I turned to what I knew best, which was a naturally given talent, and I decided to draw and paint. Art is a language that is able to communicate what the artist or the creator is trying to get out to the public. When I started, I was a little bit fearful, and I was a little bit more controlled. So I used what I was familiar with. When I was in Africa, we didn't have the resources like I do now. So back then we used to use coffee. We would take leftover cups of coffee, and depending on how you dilute them, you get different tones. And we'd use that to create pictures, or we'd just use pencils. Or we go outside and get cassava leaves, the leaves from the cassava, squeeze the chlorophyll out of it, and use that and coffee to make two different tones, green and brown. Came to America, I got exposed to using pastels, and I fell in love with oil pastels. And I started using that. It was safer for me, it was easier for me to control the lines, and I enjoyed doing it. But as I started working with that, I realized I can use different chemical solvents to make the pastels more fluid. Then I said, okay, well, let me try mixing that with acrylic paint and see how that works. That worked great. So nice. So then I'll buy some oil paint and let me mix all three of them together, merge all of them together. It's kind of frustrating, but you end up producing this unique type of art, and it's beautiful. So now I basically use pastel, acrylic, oil paints, and different types of solvents that I would mix to get different textures. Some of them I even incorporate sand into it to give it a texture. So the art is forever evolving. I started working from the framework of womanhood because women were very important to me. The role of women in my life was very important to me. I wanted to be an African artist, or an artist from Africa, painting typical African scenes. Then I eventually evolved into painting things of African traditions that were kept in the peripheral. Because as I talked to people about Africa, I realized that they were not aware of certain things or certain cultural aspects that originated in Africa that we're actually doing now. So I had to start painting pictures in that direction, talk about things like tongue piercing, body modification, scarifications and stuff like that. Then eventually I realized that people are being receptive to my work. Most of the work now talks about the struggle with people of African descent, geopolitically, socially, economically and stuff. The blind is beginning to see, the deaf is beginning to hear, the lame is beginning to march. So that, I think, is going to catapult my next set of work, where it's going to be to celebrate the things that we're doing to make this transition from a struggling people to a people of victory. Well, somebody said The people who do not understand the history will always make the mistake of repeating it. We Africans are always shoved to the side, hidden in the corner, and there's no spotlight on us. Now, as an artist, my job is to take our strengths and make that visible, communicate it to the young people. Because the young kid growing up today in America doesn't have a reference point to see himself as a king or as a queen, as a great warrior. Being creative to me means taking whatever is in your hands, whatever is available to you, and using that as a medium to communicate your passion, to communicate what you feel, to communicate what is it that you want the world to know. As artists, we become the point of reference by which people see themselves. So when you go to modern art museums today and you see most of the mainstream art, African people or people of African descent are always in the peripheral of the art. They're never really mainstream. Since we don't see ourselves in the main part of art or in the main part of civilization, then we don't really know who we are. So artists are able to give people the reference point of who they are to be able to draw back from that. As an artist and as a prophet, our responsibility is to call out the sin against our people, to put it down and document it. Because if we don't document it, somebody is bound to change it. It's a history book that was done for the school system, I think in Texas, where they said the slaves were actually migrant workers that came here on their own will and lived a life of servitude because of a choice that they chose. And it had to get changed. So if there's no historian to tell the true story, that will eventually get lost and we will again become an enslaved people. Being creative means taking whatever is in your hands, whatever resources available to you, making it work to achieve a goal. We are given an inspiration, we're given a dream, and a dream is one way that God or whoever you perceive him to be speaks to you. And if you can dream it, you're already engineered to achieve it. And you have to find the principles, the governing principles within that sphere that you're given and follow those principles and achieve the required outcome. I love painting. Sometimes it's stressful, and that's the struggle that I have sometimes. Because most people say they paint to relieve stress. But for me, when I'm working, during the process of actually working, it's very stressful because it's trying to take that image that's locked in my mind and transition it and making it real, to copy it from my mind, from the unseen into a seen and tangible artwork. It's a struggle. But when it's all done, that's when I find peace, and that's when I find my own liberation. Artist has a choice to make. Do they stay true to their own art, what they design to communicate, or do they paint what the public wants so they can generate wealth out of it? If you're a true artist, you paint what it is that you're given to communicate. So you have to stay with that struggle. You do what you love, and the money will come later.
Can't look in the eyes of my brother without shedding a tear for my brother. I really want to try for my brother.
The favorite thing that I actually ever created was not a painting. The favorite thing that I ever created was a fish pond.
True to my brother, and I'll do